This program looks into extraordinary enzymes that, when added to fuel, appear to cut consumption and carbon dioxide emissions by making combustion engines more efficient. Enzymes are harmless protein catalysts that occur naturally in aqueous environments, but research into oil-based use of enzymes has been a lifetime's work, pioneered by this man, Mr. Sasanuma. Can you please tell me, when did your research start, sir?
1965年頃から始まりまして、もっといろんなことを
It's about 1965, and it's been a lifetime work since then.
And what did this research focus on, please?
有機物を使って公害をなくすと。
Is to reduce pollution by using organics instead of chemicals.
Bioproducts.
Bioproducts, exactly.
One question about the diesel bug, if I may. What do these enzymes do?
Well, there are many functions, and depending on which bacteria the enzyme is working on, but one of the main functions is that it inhibits the growth of the bacteria and sort of controls the quality of the oil.
Mr. Sasanuma, Mikako, thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. ありがとうございます。
These enzymes were developed to break down and dissolve sludge and water that collects in fuel storage tanks and pipelines and thus reduce corrosion. But 500,000 hours of sea trials in fuel tanks and engines of ships are producing the first long-term hard data results. I'm with Willem Veltevrede, the chief engineer from the Stena Trader in the engine control room. Willem, welcome.
Thank you.
How long have the enzymes been used on the auxiliary engines of the Stena Trader, please?
It's now for about 1 year.
1 year. And have you had any problems?
No, we have no problems.
No problems. And what change have you measured in terms of measured results in fuel consumption, please?
Fuel consumption is -8%.
-8%. And what change in carbon monoxide output?
This is -22%.
-22?
Yes.
That's quite impressive.
Yes, indeed.
And what change in carbon dioxide, please?
It's -8.
-8%. And what change in NOx gases, nitrogenous poisonous gas output?
It's -9.
-9%. With such impressive results, do you think that these enzymes are likely to be used on the rest of the Stena fleet?
This will be a management decision, but they are good results, so hopefully.
Hopefully. I can't say fairer than that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Willem. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
-8% on fuel consumption would save the oil reserves of Russia with approximately 6.3% of the world's oil reserves, according to BP's statistics, if every engine fuel in the world was treated with Mr. Sasanuma's enzymes. I'm with Malcolm Crawford, Director of Solpower in Japan and responsible for marketing Soltron. Welcome, Malcolm.
Welcome to Belfast, Gareth.
And if you could just tell me, please, what is the story? When did it begin here in Belfast in Northern Ireland?
Well, it really began in the late 90s, and we brought the product Soltron from Japan, and we realised that it changed the combustion ignition qualities of fuel.
And when you say it changed the combustion qualities, what exactly did it improve?
Well, we found that it improved the power, but it also improved the economy. So we were seeing 6–7% efficiency, and that was quite significant.
That's the fuel improvement.
Yes.
And what about CO2?
The same.
Exactly the same?
Yeah.
And are there any byproducts then?
Yes, very interestingly, being a natural substance, the enzymes actually recover sludge, turning it into a certified fuel in storage situations.
What, storage tanks and pipelines?
Yeah. Also, we found in diesel, it inhibited the growth of bacteria, known as the diesel bug.
What's in this Soltron formula?
Well, it's made up of a couple of dozen enzymes, derived from green plant. It's nearly 1 part per 4 million in the fuel per enzyme.
That's absolutely minuscule, enzymes to fuel, 1 part per 4 million.
Well, that is the amazing thing, and it means that it is viable for to treat fuels.
And what sort of brands have we got then on the product?
Well, we have a number of brands, one being Xmile. They are in the marketplace for shipping, also for petrol stations and retail. But we also do industrial fuels and other fuels.
And we've seen a lot of field trials, sea trials, with the Xmile brand, particularly in Holland.
Yes, well, Professor Douglas of Queen's was involved in those trials.
That's Professor Roy Douglas of Mechanical and Aeronautical Engineering at Queen's University, Belfast. And we caught up with him checking out the data measurement process on one of the Stena Line ships. I'm now with Professor Roy Douglas of Queen's University, Belfast, on the bridge of the Stena Trader at Rotterdam. Roy, welcome.
Thank you, Gareth.
We've been talking about natural catalysts for fuel combustion, namely enzymes.
Yes, very interesting topic this. We have been looking at how we would measure and assess these catalysts by measuring the fuel consumption in various engines. All the indications are that there's improved, more efficient combustion using these enzymes.
So what exactly are the enzymes doing, do you think?
We think they're acting as a natural catalyst, which is breaking down the fuel and making the combustion faster and more efficient. Enzymes are natural catalytic elements that occur in all sorts of living organisms, including our own bodies, and we think they have the same sort of processes going on, but acting on the fuel rather than, say, breaking down food as they would do in our own bodies.
And the end result is more efficient fuel combustion?
Yes, it's clearly shown in the fuel consumption of several engine applications that we've looked at.
One of those engine applications is motoring, and we travelled to Germany to look at garages that have used enzyme treatment at the petrol and diesel pumps. And you are?
Bernd.
Bernd, welcome. Can you please tell me the story of this service station?
Yeah, it is easy. This service station exists since nearly 50 years, and the sales in liters is always about 120,000 liters a month average.
For the total fuel sales of this station?
For the total fuel sales of the station.
And what happened then?
Then we put Xmile in for trial.
For how long?
12 months.
And what was the end result of that?
They had a sales increase in liters from about 120,000 liters up to nearly 300,000 liters a month.
120 to 300, that's nearly a threefold increase in the space of 12 months.
That is correct.
So what marketing went into this?
Nearly nothing.
What do you mean, nearly nothing?
Yeah, we just have a small sign at the pumps.
Well, there's no obvious sign on the station, so what else caused the increase?
Nothing. We did not any marketing activities.
So how did the people find out then?
I think the only possibility is that one customer talked to the next customer, or to friends or to other people.
So word of mouth in this little town of
Bürstadt
caused that increase?
Yeah.
Is there any other cause that you can think of?
No, because during the same time nearly all other fuel stations had a decrease in sales of liters.
While the sales of this service station increased?
Correct.
Well, that increase over the space of 12 months is very impressive, Bernd. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Then the oil distribution company stopped that service station treating their fuel with enzymes. We checked out another German service station. Your name is William
Seibusch.
William Seibusch, and you manage a number of service stations, including this one?
Including this one, yes. It is the station in the Rhein-Neckar-Zentrum in Mannheim.
Mannheim.
Yes.
Okay, and you've shown us this computer printout of litre sales from the pumps of this service station.
Yes.
From the oil supply company?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's an official printout.
It's official, yes.
And the sales in the September
was 25,000 litres.
25,000 litres?
25,000.
And that's when you started the trial of the Xmile?
Yeah.
That's when it began, in the September?
This began in the end of the September, yes.
Right. Now, by the following July, your sales were?
425,000 litres in July.
Now, to be honest, that is a nearly 20-fold increase in the space of 9 months.
Yeah,
well,
definitely.
Okay, I mean, it's almost too good to be true, right?
Yes.
Okay, what happened then?
And then the oil company said, stop. We don't like it.
They stopped you adding Xmile?
Yes.
Now, they were acting as a cartel to do that, I guess. Why?
They said, you destroyed our market.
For the other service
But
stations?
yes.
Now, surely they could have created the opportunity for the other service stations to sell Xmile as well.
Yes, but they don't like it, and they have the other one. You can read here the Shell or the Aral Super gas oil with 5 or 6 cents per liter more, and we did it for 1, and we have more and more customers, and they said, hey, we need 6, and we have, I think, for myself, our product is much better as the other.
Protecting premium fuel from a biological alternative.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, that's probably illegal under European law.
Yeah, it is so.
Well, it's not funny, really. I mean, I guess the environment suffers and we carry on using more fuel.
Yeah, it is so.
Well, frankly, that's not the best of outcomes.
Yeah.
We would say that's a very bad outcome, really.
Yeah.
Bad for the environment, bad for the consumption of fuel for whole nations.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about that, but thank you very much, William Seibush.
Thank you.
During the time it took to research and film this programme, we visited Queen's University Belfast a number of times to report on Professor Douglas's progress collating the data from the sea trials. Firstly, Stena Trader's specific fuel consumption analysed over 68 days of the trial.
Yes, we took samples every day of the fuel consumption of the engine, and we plotted a baseline over the first 14 days, so that was full 2 weeks of testing. At that point, Xmile was added to the fuel and mixed, and then we saw a further almost 30 days before there was any change in the fuel consumption of the engine. So on day 42 we saw something of the order of 10% reduction in the specific fuel consumption, which continued right on through to the end of the test on day 68, but at that point we were down to about a 15% improvement.
Now we've got another plot of the CO emissions, the carbon output, with again the 70 days of the test.
Yes, this is very interesting because you get a very flat trend in the first sort of 30 odd days, the first month of the test, showing about 1.1 grams per kilowatt hour of CO. Then on day 36 we start to see a phenomena coming in which we think is engine cleanup, where the CO output increases by about 20%. That continues for 7 or 8 days.
And to be honest, that reflects the experience with motor cars, which I call decoking.
Yes, there's some form of clean-up going on there. But the significance here is that at the end of that clean-up period at day 42, where we saw the huge improvement in specific fuel consumption, the CO then drops back to a level of typically 10 to 15% lower than the original specific CO, which in fact is the same raw CO out of the engine, but the specific values follow the specific fuel consumption.
So a very respectable result from the Stena line field test.
Yes, very pleasing.
Such an extensive trial enabled Professor Douglas to take account of loading in terms of the accuracy of the final results. We've been looking at 500,000 hours of data from multiple shipping, but in particular the Stena Trader, we saw something like a 10% improvement.
But that was at light load condition. Over all of the load, and particularly on some of the other vessels, we've seen that over the full load range we're achieving an average of about 6 or 7%. So we see 10% at light load and then slightly less at the higher load conditions.
And here we are a year further on.
Yes, on that particular vessel another 4,000 hours of running, and the great news in that was that over that period we've seen very sustainable results with the 6 or 7% improvement right throughout the full year. So that shows both good durability and sustainability of the particular improvements.
Whereas Stena trialled enzyme-treated marine gas oil, the Teso line in Holland trialled enzyme-treated biodiesel. I'm with Kees de Waal, the director of the Teso shipping company operating between the Texel Island and the mainland of Holland. Good afternoon and welcome, Kees.
Welcome on our ship, sir. It's very nice to have you here today. It's a beautiful day. We have a very attractive island for the people who live there and also for our tourists. And it's very important that we keep it this way for another 100 years, 200 years at least. Therefore we make use of an addition to our fuel called Soltron Xmile. And I must say we are happy with the first results. We started using this a few months ago and we found out that it reduced the use of fuel by 5%.
Now you've been trying these Xmile enzymes for how long now?
For a few months now,
And what sort of results are you getting?
The results we are getting is that we use less fuel, and that's very good. We reduce 5%. That doesn't sound like it's very much, but when we go over this channel for 14,000 times a year, almost 14,000 times, that means that we have about 700 free rides.
700 free rides on the high seas?
700 free rides on the high seas, and that's very good. It saves the environment. It's also interesting for us because it saves money. So it's really a win-win situation.
I think that is a win-win situation. 2 of the Tesso ship engines use biodiesel. The other 2 engines use enzyme-treated biodiesel. Monitoring the results on board with us was Dutch government environmental advisor, Mr. Henk Barbet.
The results we've seen so far is an increase in fuel economy of about 5 to 7%. So that also means a decrease in carbon dioxide emissions of the same amount. So 5 to 7%, which is quite considerable.
It is considerable. I mean, what are the implications in terms of the environment?
This is using an enormous amount of fuel, so even 5 or 7% means it will save hundreds of thousands of liters every year. It also means an enormous amount of less carbon dioxide emissions and other emissions that are connected to the use of this diesel power, such as nitrogen dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and particulate matter. So it's quite a considerable improvement. I think the advantage from an environmental point of view when using heavy fuel oil is even bigger advantages in using an additive like Xmile.
These extensive sea trials in the Netherlands were commissioned back. I'm with Lieutenant Commander Harry Leijzinger of the Dutch Navy at the New Haven port. Lieutenant Commander, welcome.
Thank you.
You're about to test out the Xmile enzymes in the Dutch Navy. Can you please tell me about the tests?
What we're going to do is to do a test on board of one of our naval ships, a training ship. It's called the Kinsbergen. We're going to do it from May till August of this year. On the training ship we have 2 engines, and one engine we're going to use Xmile and one engine we're going to use without Xmile. And what we're looking for is fuel saving and also less pollution of the environment.
What about sludge in the fuel tanks? I mean, how many fuel tanks does a ship like this have?
A ship like this has 7-8 fuel tanks.
And do you have problems of fuel sludge?
We have problem with water in the fuel, and the problem is that the water in the fuel is causing sludge that are blocking the filters.
And what are you hoping the enzymes might be able to do with that?
Well, we're hoping that the enzymes are breaking down the sludge, so we don't have any problems with blocked filters.
It should be a very interesting test.
It should be very interesting.
These enzymes stabilize biodiesel very successfully. So we went back to Belfast to ask Professor Douglas about the Tesso ship enzyme-treated biodiesel results.
Yes, specific fuel consumption is very important because it is fuel consumption per unit of power, which is inversely proportional to thermal efficiency. So in other words, it's a great measure of the efficiency of the engine. It clearly shows that with enzymes there is improvement over the full load range of the engine and specific fuel consumption, or if you like, thermal efficiency.
Now it looks like a very consistent gap between those 2 lines on the graph.
Yes, I couldn't have really drawn it better myself, but it's a clear curve fit of the data.
And we have another graph now of the improvement in specific fuel consumption plotted against the engine power in kilowatts. Can you please tell me about this one?
Yes, this analyses the difference in slightly more detail, so we can plot the difference at every individual test point that we took and then average those by putting a line through them. So that gives us an overall average in the improvement that we've seen right across the load range. And as you can see, again, several percentage points comes out, something of the order of 6 or 7% again. We took something like 90 points The average of those 90 points is saying about 6%. We did it right across the load range, and we went up and down through the load range several times. So that should be very significant in terms of statistical accuracy.
For biodiesel?
For biodiesel against treated biodiesel with Xmile.
Now the next graph is a plot of exhaust gas temperature set against engine power in kilowatts. Can you tell me about this one, please?
Yes, this is important because it supports our previous data measured in the specific fuel consumption. If the temperature in the exhaust gas is lower, this supports the idea that the engine is running more efficiently, and that's what this shows right across the power range of the engine.
So where has that heat gone?
It's gone into power coming out of the engine, so that translates into less fuel being used by the engine for the same power output.
Mechanical engineering had quantified the first of two distinguishable enzyme catalysis effects, namely the breaking down of large hydrocarbon molecules in stored fuel to make it more stable and efficient, giving better performance. We then moved to look at analysis techniques at the chemistry department of Queen's University Belfast. Manus Carey, Research Fellow at Questa Applied Technology Unit. What analysis techniques have you been using here?
We use three different types of mass spectrometry: electron ionization, electrospray, and matrix-assisted laser desorption ionization. Electron ionization employs highly energetic electrons. Electrospray uses slightly less energetic protons, and matrix-assisted laser desorption ionization uses laser ionization.
Excellent. Any other techniques?
We also employed gas chromatograph flame ionization detection in order to separately identify components from a complex mixture.
Thank you. The second distinguishable enzyme effect is qualitative and catalyses the breakdown of resinous, half-burnt hydrocarbons surrounding soot molecules as a result of combustion. Less soot means less pollution and acid rain. This second enzyme effect dramatically cleans up exhaust emissions and clears out the carbon and soot buildup inside engines, leaving them cleaner, more efficient and longer lasting. Then, from chemistry at Belfast, we moved to Portsmouth University to look at the microbiology. Dr. Ivana Beach, you've been conducting research into Soltron.
Indeed, we have conducted extensive research into Soltron.
And first of all, are these enzymes alive?
There are no living organisms in Soltron preparation.
Okay, and what about toxicity?
Soltron is totally non-toxic, it's absolutely non-pathogenic and non-carcinogenic, and therefore completely safe.
And what sort of concentration are we talking about?
By the time the product gets into engine environment, is probably close to 1 part per 4 millions.
That's enzymes to fuel?
To fuel ratio, that's correct.
And
therefore totally safe.
And when it comes down to breaking down the hydrocarbons, what's happening there?
Well, our best tentative proposed mechanism is basically oxidative power of biomolecules or enzymatic system that is in Soltron.
So it's oxidizing those large chain hydrocarbons?
That is correct.
Well, what exactly is going on here?
We have a very complex mixture of various enzymes, and as I already mentioned, they are basically acting as oxidative catalysts of the hydrocarbon breaking down reaction.
People have been telling us that these enzymes are inhibiting the diesel bug. What's going on there?
Our best explanation for any possible activity of Soltron enzymatic mixture is inhibition of biological pathways, or biochemical pathways rather, of any microbial contaminant that are present in fuels.
The real discoveries here are Mr. Sasanuma's enzymes that work in an oil-based environment. They work so well that their product and company names are being plagiarized all over the place. So back to Malcolm Crawford, in charge of Soltron at Belfast, to ask a hard question.
Now, you may not want me to ask you about this, but we have come across attempted reproductions of these enzymes around the world, marketed, reaching the market before the original. What about all that?
There are products in the marketplace. Most of these are water-based, which isn't advised purely because they don't blend with fuel. Ultimately, the performance determines the original.
But in terms of branding, we're talking about Soltron and Xmile being the original.
Yes.
Is there any method that people can distinguish the original from anything else that might come along as a copy?
Okay, well, each container that we bring in is electronically traceable, so we can immediately establish that it's our product with any of our clients.
With any end user?
Absolutely.
The lab report about one oil-based copy found no enzymes, only chemicals. Because of a plague of plagiarism, these Northern Ireland stockpiles are physically sealed and electronically traceable by referring to their Belfast or Japanese offices.
Roy, I have to ask you about these attempted reproductions of this enzyme technology. Seems to me quite difficult, considering there's about 24 of them to copy.
Yes, this is a very difficult area and one that I wouldn't like to comment too much on. However, one point that I would like to make is that some of them are water-based, and that doesn't seem like a good idea. Water doesn't mix well with fuel, so I don't think you should be attempting to put more water into your fuel.
That's why we have caps on fuel tanks, huh?
Yeah, something like that.
So Roy, at the end of all of this, there's a university paper being produced. How far have you got with that paper?
Yes, well, almost finished. Paper's almost finished, never completely finished, but we're working on it at the moment.
And how will people be able to get hold of copies?
Through Soltron themselves. Soltron will be purchasing copies for distribution to clients and customers.